Hello and welcome back to Field Notes Podcast. I'm your host Eden, and thank you for joining me in today's episode. I'm going to share my biggest takeaways, my biggest lessons from 2025. And as I was reflecting, I feel like one of the through lines in all of these is kind of creativity, authenticity, and rock bottoms. I feel like this time of year is always such a potent time for reflection. It's such a good moment to really drop in to the depths of what you've been going through this year. Some of the biggest things in my life have happened this year. My husband and I actually, it wasn't 2024, but it kind of feels like it was like this calendar year, even though it was over a year ago, but we moved across the country. We got married this year. I went back to school this year. We transplanted our whole lives in a totally different state. I also started posting on my podcast again after one of my hiatuses in July. So around 5 months ago. And so these are the things that I am drawing my biggest lessons from, because I feel like these were the things that brought up the most areas for growth, moments for growth, lessons, and points for reflection. Okay, first lesson learned. The first lesson learned, one of the biggest things that I learned this year is that creativity requires resourcing. I've always been a creative person, and you might be able to relate to this, but for so long, I've had a lot of different creative eras, but I would really hit these moments where I would be like creative for a year or 6 months with a particular thing, whether it's like posting on Instagram or posting on the podcast, or even like my style TikTok page or something like that, or writing. And I'd be creative for a period of time, but like I couldn't, it would kind of like just fizzle out. And I think there's a lot of dynamics that play into that. It's not just resourcing, but resourcing plays a huge role in our ability to create sustainably. And what I mean by that is like our level of physical energy, and also our level of regulation, nervous system regulation, that we are able to maintain. Like if you are constantly in your life being hit with triggers, or nervous system dysregulation is chronically taking you out, that is not a place that is a fertile ground for creativity. Yes, I feel like that is a fertile ground for working on yourself, which is a creative act, but I mean like consistent creative output. I feel like consistent creative output is a privilege. I feel like it comes from a place where you have really stable energy. You have stable emotional, physical, psychological well-being, to the point where you have extra to give, because it's kind of like things have to be relatively stable. You need to be pouring into yourself and have the energy to regularly output that extra thing. That was a big lesson I learned this year with my podcast. Like, I just feel like you cannot force yourself to be creative. I feel like with social media, there's so much influence and so much of this dream of like becoming successful, doing something online, which I think is wonderful. I think it has really wonderful aspects to it, but I think that I've talked about this so much, but I think that it creates this perception that it's easy, or it should be this kind of like overnight thing to be creating something, like a content creator or a writer or a video producer or a blogger or a podcaster or a TikTok or whatever it might be. Like, it creates this idea that it's easy, but it takes so much energy to have a creative hobby or a creative outlet that you are consistently pouring into with regularity, like with that you were treating it almost like a job. Okay, next, this is parallel, but it's a little bit different. I feel like something I really learned this year is that your physical health greatly limits or expands your emotional and psychological health. Like, I've always been a firm believer that the body and the mind are not just connected. They are one thing. But I definitely took my physical health for granted before this year. A lot of things just clicked into place around the fact that you can only be so mentally, spiritually expanded and tapped in and aligned if your physical well-being is not present in this foundational way. I always have been a healthy person, so I didn't fully appreciate the next level to which I could take my physical health in order to unlock greater psychological, mental, spiritual, etc. well-being. On the flip side of that, like if we're not bringing our physical body along on the journey of psychological or spiritual growth, we are up against an upper limit that we don't even realize, because our biomechanics and our nervous system and our brain are all in a feedback loop. Like if you have chronically bad posture that you are in, that sends specific neurological signals back and forth that correlate to nervous system states. And those nervous system states shape your emotions and your thoughts that you have. And I think that like when we do work in one arena, it has an impact on the other. And we do work on another area, it has an impact on the other. So I think that everything is completely related, but that when we are not pouring into our physical health and we are not understanding that we are a physical being, it greatly limits the psychological growth that we can reach. And I feel like this is just, it's so evident, but it's something I took for granted. This next one is such a tried and true. This is such a tried and true, but it hit me this year. It hit me this year with a newfound appreciation, which is that the things that trigger you in other people are a mirror to something worth looking at within. And I choose those words very carefully because I think that a lot of times you hear this sort of like simplification of like the things that bother you and other people are the things within you that you don't like or that are suppressed within you. And I think that it can be a little more nuanced than that. It can be a part of you you don't like, or it can be a part of you, a deeply disowned part of you that you have lost contact with, or it can be something you really also want or you want to embody, and you like unconsciously there is that part of you that exists, but you don't feel like you have permission to have it or be it. And like this hit me in a whole new capacity this year, because I think the thing about this, if you're anything like me, like you're very in these waters all the time and you hear these perspectives a lot, it can almost feel, it doesn't make it any easier hearing that to actually do the work of figuring out what is at the bottom of it when it comes to a person, like a group of people or whatever it may be. And like, I think we have a lot of resistance to doing that work, that shadow work essentially, because it does necessitate like a transformation of how you understand yourself when you actually like get to the root of what it's about and you kind of retrieve that unconscious or abandoned aspect of you. Like it does totally change how the puzzle pieces fall within you. And so like I think that we unconsciously know that when we really unpack that, it's going to change us. And like there's a part of us that wants to hold on to especially like the bitterness or the envy or the criticism, and like it feels so much more simple to be like these people are wrong and these people have it wrong in the way that they are. I can't stand because they're so whatever it is. It's really comfortable and like self-affirming in that place. And it's like it just feels so good. And so it's hard to temporarily suspend that so that you can investigate what's going on. And I also think there's like wounds a lot of times associated with this, because like I may have this bitter resentment towards someone who is living out something that I would like to pursue, but there is a lot of pain with that because I have felt like I can't, like going without pursuing that. Like if we examine it from what's happening energetically in the unconscious, it's like there is pain for the part of you who has been told unconsciously or subconsciously that they can't have that for this entire time up until now. And so in order to kind of retrieve those pieces, we have to re-experience the pain of having lived without acknowledging and allowing that true desire or that true part of you to be in the room. So there's deep work there. There's deep unearthing there. But this year for me, in certain experience that I had, just reaffirmed, in case I forgot or in case I was not remembering, that yes, when you are triggered by someone else and it's always that love-hate, because the thing that also is so interesting about the people who trigger us and that we judge and we have these like resentments and criticisms and whatever towards, is that it's like we act like we don't like them, but we actually love them. Like we are obsessed with them in our hate for them, because if it truly we didn't care, if it didn't mean something to us, it wouldn't even be in the zeitgeist. It wouldn't be in the psyche with this amount of charge. And so when you hate something, you actually do love it. You actually do love it. Some part of you is at the very least fixated on it. It's like there's something, and that alone is like there's meat there, because we're not fixated on things that we could go either way on. It's like it's the things that have that hook that we have this strong positive feeling or strong negative feeling. Okay, this is one of my favorite lessons, and it just is the lesson that keeps on giving. Going the humbling route is always the better option. Confronting the thing you really don't want to confront always brings greater health, peace, and wholeness. You can put that on my gravestone. You can put that carved into it, okay? Touching rock bottom is a gift. Until you've touched rock bottom, you have not built a firm foundation. 2025 was not a year of rock bottoms for me. There were rock bottoms prior to 2025, but 2025 was the year where I felt so rewarded, not by big manifestations, not by external things, not by material things, but in my maturity as a woman. I felt so rewarded by prior failures and prior just hard moments and prior moments of confronting hard truths, and then going through years of work and resilience building, that I experienced such great internal rewards from those really slow moments and that slow, steady chipping away at just becoming the person that I want to be, becoming a person that I respect and that I feel dignity in being, and building towards the life that I want to have. Every time my ego has been humbled by the confrontation that I am not the person that my ego would like the outer world to believe that I am, or even to convince myself that I am, or to convince my neighbors that I am, every time that my ego has been humbled in confronting that is not the full story, those moments have led to the biggest gifts in my feeling of wholeness, in my feeling of connection to my higher power, in my feeling of purpose, in my feeling like I am building a life that is so grounded. It's so rooted. These moments have planted me in reality, have broadened my empathy, and just given me more maturity that I would not trade for any material thing. It was just a year of steady building, but in the most rewarding possible way of like feeling so much richness on the inside and feeling so much possibility and capability on the inside. And it's just made me more and more grateful. Like the older that I get, the more I am exceedingly grateful for the moments that life has felt really hard, or moments that have felt like this is such an ego death. This is paradigm shattering. This is like bringing about humility. Like this is so humbling. I just feel so grateful for those moments because they have allowed me to then build in this extremely rooted way. Okay, the final biggest lesson that I learned in 2025 was that a well-timed, well-prepared for leap of faith can change everything. Again, my words are selected very carefully. After deliberating, after weighing your aims, after contemplating your values, after exploring the implications of your decision and accepting the sacrifice of your decisions, yet knowing that it still has to be done and it is still worth paying that cost, because every leap of faith, every big step, every leap has a cost. Finally doing it can change everything. Finally doing it after you've deliberated it, you have weighed it, you have thought through the practical implications of it, and you have confronted what it's going to mean, what it's going to cost. And yet you are still willing to take that sacrifice, and you feel and you just know, despite all these hard things about this leap of faith, because again, every leap of faith comes with trials, you're still willing to do it. When you then do it, it opens up a new chapter. It opens up a new dimension of your life. It brings you to the next place. It opens and pushes you through into this new landscape that has so much more to teach you and so much more to give you and so many more people for you to meet and so many more lessons for you to learn. And it will be the leap that brings more expansion than you ever could have imagined. I feel like this year, after making several large decisions that they had been baking in the oven for years. And I've talked about this, key themes of my life in this podcast, but I had done the inner work for so long. I had prepared in every way possible. I had arranged things in every way possible for this to happen, but there's nothing that can replace that leap. And like, if you're on that precipice, just know that taking the leap is going to do so much for you. Like if you're afraid, basically, if you are afraid and you're on that edge, just know you are being pushed. You're being pushed. If you've sat on that inner work, like you are a loaf of sourdough bread in the oven, ready to come out and now be this new sourdough bread instead of this mass of fermented dough. Like, let the universe push you. Let yourself be pushed over that edge and know that this is going to open up so much for you. It's going to open up so much more than you could have imagined. And you can trust yourself. You can trust that you have done everything in your power, in your inner world, etc., to do it. And just do it. No, but the lesson is that when you do that, it changes everything. I've taken leaps of faith that I was grossly underprepared for, to the degree I didn't even know how underprepared I was. And they led to like more rock bottoms and more rocky times. And then I've taken leaps of faith where I had to like trust other people and I wasn't sure. And like, I've taken leaps of faith this year where I had to trust myself. And I'm just so grateful that I did, because it's like a little quest where it's like you have to go through this dark tunnel And like everything in you is like, I'm pretty sure what I'm trying to get to is on the other side of this dark tunnel, but you can't see it. But you know, because there's a map and you've done your due diligence, you've done your research, and it's the only thing left to do. And then when you come out on the other side, there's all different characters and all different challenges and all different little like tools that you now get to pick up on this new chapter. So that was a big lesson from 2025. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, feelings, or opinions, you can leave them in the YouTube comments or you can send me a message. And that is all. I hope that you are closing out this year with peace and with wholeness and with gratitude. And I will talk to you in the next one.